Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today's first video. We're going to do the June 2017 forecast for today's first video. We'll have a look at the Beijing Climate Centre and CFS V2 models to see what they're showing for this month. We'll start off having a review of the last forecast of May, month-ahead forecast, and we'll finish up with a sneak peek for July. So quite a bit to get on with. We will do the forecast for you though right now. Just to say that later on today I have a week ahead forecast. There'll be the video and written version to that'll be coming up for you this afternoon. So we'll start off with a review of May. Now the GasWeather.com May 2017 forecast was for temperature anomalies to come out a little bit warmer than average. We still predicted a warmer than average month, but not a huge deviation. And we went for average to possibly slightly drier than average rainfall. So what actually happened during May 2017 is that we came out with a very warm month. Temperature anomalies here were around 1.5 to 2.5 degrees above average, set against 61 to 1990 across the country. These are the updated climatology maps from the UK Met Office, just updated. And you can see that most parts of the UK coming out with a very significantly warmer than average month, generally around 2 degrees above average, set against 61 to 1990. If we compare it to a more modern average, 81 to 2010, the deviation isn't quite as great, but nevertheless, we're still talking about a degree or more above average for most parts of the country. So whichever way you cut it, it was a very mild, very warm month during May. Precipitation looks like this, quite interesting. Setting against 61 to 1990, rainfall came out really quite significantly drier than average for Scotland and Northern England. Wetter than average in the far southeast of the country, which is fairly unusual deviation to say the least. And if we set it against 81 to 2010, the more modern average, very similar story. Again, the north and west is generally coming out on the drier than average side, the far southeast generally coming out on the wetter than average side. Perhaps not quite to the same degree as 61 to 1990. Not much in it really. So in terms of the GasWeather forecast, well, we did pick up on the warmer than average month again, so quite pleased with that. We underestimated the extent of that warmth, however, so it was a much warmer month than anticipated. For precipitation, we thought overall average to drier than average, which is okay for the north. For southern parts of the country, not quite as good down there. So a bit of a hit and a bit of a miss, I think, for the May 2017 forecast. Let's get on with June then and see what the two models are predicting for June. Starting off with the CFS V2 700 millibar height anomaly for June 2017, and it's going for quite an unsettled month actually. It's got quite a deep trough of low pressure out to the west of us and bringing the jet stream through rather like that. Now we also have this area of above average heights through central parts of Europe. So what could happen here is that although this is really quite a changeable month to say the least, with this ridge through central Europe we could drag up some quite warm air at times. So maybe, yes, unsettled month, possibly quite a wet month even, but also potentially at times it could be really quite a warm month, and you wouldn't be ruling out the chance of some plumes and some thunderstorms. I don't think, in that kind of pattern. If we were centering this trough more over and to the east of the country, then you would be looking at a dismally wet and cold month. But because the trough is centred in the Atlantic and we've got this ridge in Central Europe, the two could combine to pull up some quite warm air at times. So unsettled, wet, but potentially at times quite warm is the prediction there, I would have thought. That's backed up by the temperature anomaly forecast to some degree. You see that temperatures are coming out warmer than average across many parts of Europe. The British Isles is just on the periphery of that, so the east and southeast, yes, we're close to these warm temperature anomalies, and across Central Europe, elsewhere to the west, close to that trough, it is coming out nearer normal. If you have a look at the precipitation, we can see that that is coming out wetter than average in most parts of the country, particularly so through the north and the west. Average precipitation close to the southeast, and it looks quite wet generally across the west of Europe. So I think warm and wet would be the way to go with the CFS V2 for this month. What about the Beijing Climate Centre? Well, these are 500 millibar heights broken down to 10-day periods. The first 10-day period taking us from the 1st through to the 10th of June. We find that we've got quite a deep trough again, centred to our west, bringing the jet stream through. So it's a pretty good representation, really, between the CFS V2 and the Beijing Climate Centre for the next 10 days anyway. They are in agreement with this trough to the west, and it looks unsettled. The second 10-day period, now this is cooler because we're centering the trough actually over the country then, so it's still unsettled, but what's happening is that we're starting to pull in some quite cool air from the northern Atlantic into that trough as well. So for 10 days from the 11th through to 20th, it still looks unsettled, but also probably quite cool with the temperatures also. But then quite a big change takes place for the final 10 days. This takes us from the 21st through to the 30th of June. And then the trough, it's gone, and we've got this big ridge here building across the UK and extending back into eastern parts of Europe, or central northern parts of Europe as well. And that will get the wind into the east, possibly the southeast. It would bring a much drier conditions as well, and also some significantly warmer temperatures for the end of the month. The overall 30-day 500 millibar height anomaly is looking like this, and it is an unsettled signal, so the model is going for an unsettled month, albeit we know that in the final 10 days there's a huge improvement going on with pressure becoming much higher. But overall, averaging it all out, we do come out with an unsettled signal for June. Temperature anomalies are close to average, a little bit mild and average, not a great deviation. Of course, it will be much warmer as we get through to the end of the month. Precipitation anomalies, they're coming out quite wet for June. So it looks like we've got fairly good agreement actually between the two models in terms of a broad trend. So we're looking at quite an unsettled month, I think, for June. It may be that we have our first wetter than average month, possibly for quite some time. I think we may have to go back to November to find a wetter than average month, or significantly wetter than average month anyway. So it could be quite notable for that. We may have our first wetter than average month sometime. Temperatures, I think we're going to come out milder than average. I'm still seeing through all of this that temperatures will probably be on the warmer than average side. At times we might pull up some quite hot air from the south. Very unstable though, and only lasting a day or two before it all breaks down into thunderstorms, I would have thought, because it is essentially quite an unsettled pattern. If you're looking for an extended spell of dry weather, I think the second half of the month greatly increases the chance of building in high pressure. So the first half is coming out quite unsettled, quite wet, low pressure dominated. The second half, and particularly I would have thought the last week to 10 days of the month, that's when, if we're going to get an extended period of dry and warm conditions, I think that's when it's likely to occur. So GavsWeathers.com June forecast is for an unsettled month, possibly our first wetter than average month since last year. Also coming out quite warm, so unusual combination in some ways. Will be a chance of some thunder at times, in fact probably a greater than normal chance of thunder at times. But driest weather may be reserved for late on, when it could actually turn very warm and dry through that final week to 10 days of the month. We'll see how it goes, and of course we'll look at how we did when we come back to the July forecast. And speaking of the July forecast, just to give you a quick sneak peek of July, so this is the 700 millibar height anomaly that the CFS V2 model is going for July 2017. It's placing an area of above average heights close to and just to the northwest of the British Isles. Would be fairly dry signal, I would have thought that. The wind could be coming from a more northerly direction, so temperatures might not be much to write home about, but there could be a fair amount of dry weather. I think we'll worry about July when we get to it. We've got enough going on for June. So in closing, the GavsWeathers.com June 2017 forecast is for a warmer than average month. Temperature anomalies possibly up to a degree or so above average. For precipitation, I think we're looking at quite a wet month, especially in the first half. Potentially drier in the second half. Watch out for perhaps more thunder and lightning thunderstorms than normal. Weekend forecast is coming up later on today, so come back for that. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.